Caleb remained silent for what felt like a full 5 minutes before he found his voice. He asked what exactly Elias had just called him. Elias repeated the words, his voice steady despite the flush of alcohol on his cheeks. A giant penguin. Caleb stared, trying to process the statement. The man's cheeks were still tinged with a faint crimson from the drinks, and his gaze was fixed intently on Caleb. Elias then elaborated, adding specific details about a prize redemption counter at the Santa Monica Pier. He claimed he had touched and held Caleb there, but ultimately hadn't exchanged his tickets for him, and questioned why Caleb didn't remember. It was so perfectly Elias. All of Caleb's frantic mental scenarios about some old flame from California evaporated. Of course, the only thing that could occupy Elias's mind so persistently was a limited-ion, life-sized plush penguin. A wave of relief washed over Caleb, immediately followed by a splitting headache. He questioned how he could possibly resemble a penguin, gesturing to his own human form. He found the situation both infuriating and hilarious. He pointed out the flaw in Elias's logic, reminding him that if he had been left at the pier, he couldn't possibly be standing here now. Elias was unmoved. "You are the giant penguin." The two brilliant researchers, leaders in their respective fields, stood in the minimalist living room, locked in a standoff over whether one of them was a human or an oversized stuffed bird. In the end, Caleb conceded. He knew there was no winning an argument with a drunk man. He agreed that he was, in fact, a penguin. Elias nodded, satisfied. The alcohol and the late hour were catching up to him. He covered his mouth with his hand, letting out a soft yawn, his eyelashes fluttering. He looked tired. He asked what time it was. Caleb fought the urge to sarcastically ask if penguins could tell time, but decided it would drag his own intelligence down to the level of a drunkard. He pulled out his phone, the screen illuminating his weary face. 11:43. Elias seemed to ponder this information for a moment. He declared that it was late, with no pressing literature to review for the night. The next moment, he reached down, his fingers lacing through Caleb's. His tone was cheerful and direct as he announced that it was time for them to go to sleep together. Caleb's brain short-circuited. By the time he rebooted, he was already being pulled into the bedroom. He belatedly registered the wrongness of the situation, starting to protest what Elias was doing. Elias simply pushed him down to sit on the edge of the bed. He seemed to be treating Caleb exactly like a large doll. After seating him, he took Caleb's arms and arranged them neatly on his knees, mimicking the classic seated pose of a stuffed animal. He gave a firm instruction to stay put. Caleb watched as Elias walked, his steps slightly unsteady, to the other side of the bed. He picked up a massive, fluffy sheepdog plushie that had been lying on the pillows. Man and plushie stared at each other for a few seconds. Then, Elias leaned down and planted a soft kiss on the sheepdog's long, floppy ear. He carried the giant toy to the window seat, propped it up perfectly straight, and only then, satisfied, did he let go. Caleb couldn't suppress a small snort of laughter. After positioning the sheepdog, Elias stood straight. He seemed to zone out for a moment, his mind a complete blank. Up until that point, Caleb had found the experience of observing a drunk Elias to be, in a strange way, rather interesting. That changed in the next instant, when Elias began to take off his clothes right in front of him. At first, Caleb didn't even register what was happening. Elias had his back to him, and Caleb could only see his hands moving near his chest, the faint rustling sound suggesting he was unbuttoning his shirt. A moment later, Elias pulled the shirt over his head without a second thought. Caleb had caught an impressive glimpse of his toned torso when they were bowling earlier, but the impact of that moment was nothing compared to this. Elias's upper body was now completely bare. The elegant lines of his shoulder blades were on full display, and the lean curve of his waist was sharply defined in the soft bedroom light. Caleb's eyes widened. He whipped his head away, his voice trembling slightly as he demanded to know what Elias was doing. The rustling sounds behind him didn't stop. A few seconds later, they were joined by the distinct metallic clink of a belt buckle being undone. Caleb's throat went dry. A moment later, he heard Elias's soft, confused hum from behind him. He was just changing into his pajamas to go to sleep. Elias had passed the excitable stage of drunkenness and was now in a drowsy, semi-conscious state, operating on pure muscle memory. In his mind, Caleb was just another one of the plushies. There was no need for modesty in front of a toy, which explained his completely uninhibited actions. Caleb didn't dare lift his head. He kept his gaze fixed on the floor, his body rigid, until a pair of slippers entered his field of vision, followed by the cuffed ankles of a pair of gray pajama pants. Only then did he cautiously raise his eyes. Elias, now fully changed, was standing in front of the bed, frowning at him. He recalled that the last time he'd seen him, the penguin hadn't been wearing clothes. He asked why he was wearing them today, questioning if penguins even needed clothes. The grand exhibition of drunken madness had now progressed from the "You Are a Giant Penguin" chapter to the "Why Do Penguins Wear Clothes" chapter. Caleb, struggling to recover, stammered out a response. He explained that it was because he was a limited ion penguin, a special collector's item. That meant he was different from the others. He had a specially designed outfit, but it had simply been too hot to wear it that day at the pier. As the words left his mouth, he was vaguely impressed with his own ability to improvise. Elias made a sound of understanding. He then asked, quite directly, if Caleb could take his clothes off now. He had no intention of sleeping with the sheepdog tonight. He wanted to sleep with him. Caleb refused. Elias seemed surprised that a stuffed animal would defy its owner. He pressed the issue, asking why not. Caleb, cornered, insisted that his outfit was part of his design. Taking it off would make him no different from the common, non-limited ion penguins. Strangely, Elias accepted this excuse. He was quiet for a moment before nodding in agreement. He didn't push the matter further. He climbed into bed and patted the empty space beside him, inviting Caleb to lie down. Caleb eventually complied. Elias spread the duvet, covering himself with one half and tucking the other half carefully around Caleb. He switched off the lamp, plunging the room into darkness. He then lay down, turned on his side, and wrapped his arms around Caleb. He truly was treating him like a life-sized doll, naturally lifting one of Caleb's arms and draping it over his own shoulder before settling into Caleb's embrace. Then he fell still. The whole process was much simpler than Caleb had anticipated. Caleb hesitated. He asked if Elias didn't need to touch his stomach or chest or anything like that. Elias murmured that it wasn't raining, so such measures weren't necessary. Just holding him was enough. Caleb managed a quiet "oh." They held each other in silence for a while. Caleb fought with himself, but finally gave in to his curiosity. He asked why Elias hadn't chosen him back then. He heard Elias give a tired hum. Caleb pressed on, reminding him of his earlier confession of how much he'd liked him. He had fully adopted the penguin persona now. He had enough tickets, he argued, so why had Elias left with 2 medium-sized toys instead of taking him home? The man in his arms was quiet for so long that Caleb thought he'd fallen asleep. After a long pause, he heard Elias's muffled voice. He explained that all the other plushies had been bought for himself, making every memory solely his. But that day, despite the heat, Someone had helped him win a lot of the tickets. He felt that memory belonged to both of them. He said that the other person deserved to keep a part of it too. That was why, at the redemption counter, he couldn't choose him. He added a soft apology, promising that if the theme park had the same collaboration next year, he would try his best to win him. In the darkness, Caleb felt his own heartbeat skip. Elias added, as an afterthought, that the person was also very nice to touch. He mumbled that he hoped the penguin wouldn't be offended by the comparison, but in terms of feel, neither he nor the sheepdog could compare. A small smile played on Caleb's lips. Of course, his physique was the result of consistent, disciplined training and diet. It was bound to be superior to a bunch of cotton-stuffed toys. But he has a lot of flaws too, Elias continued. Caleb's smile froze. He tried to sound casual as he asked for examples. Well, for starters, Elias explained, he only lets me touch him on rainy weekdays. Not when it isn't raining and not on weekends. And he never hugs me back. I also get the feeling he's a bit resistant to my touch, because he always seems to stiffen up whenever I hold him. Still, it's good enough that he's willing to help me on rainy days. Oh, and he gets angry for no reason sometimes, and I can never figure out why. Though Caleb knew it was masochistic to ask for more, he couldn't help but feel that Elias was listing a few too many flaws. He found himself trying to defend his other self, arguing that it wasn't for no reason, and it was only sometimes. And lately, Elias said, his voice laced with something akin to worry, I find myself relying on him more and more. I hope I don't become so dependent on him on rainy days, but it's hard. He's warm and nice to touch, in a way that none of you can replace. He sounds troubled now. He is my only option right now, but I am not his. Our relationship seems unequal. Caleb's lips parted slightly. From the look of it now, the experiment is progressing very well. From the project's start to the final paper, it might take less than a year to complete, he said. I worry that the longer we spend together, the deeper I'll fall. Adjusting to a life without him after the project ends will be very difficult for me. It took Caleb a long moment to process everything. His voice was a little hoarse when he finally spoke. He suggested that if Elias told him directly how important he was, maybe he would consider helping him for a while longer after the project. And perhaps, he added carefully, just perhaps, he was never really resistant to his touch. He just needed some time to get used to such close contact. He is actually very happy to be able to help you on rainy days. And he's much more comfortable with it now. How did you? You're talking a lot, for a penguin. You're too talkative. No more talking, Caleb said with a sigh. Good night, Senior. Elias didn't say anything more. Darkness and silence enveloped the room, with only the sound of Elias's breathing, close and steady. Caleb let out a breath and closed his eyes, planning to wait until Elias was truly asleep before sneaking out of the bed. The next moment, he felt something soft and warm press against his cheek. A faint popping sound echoed in the air. The instant he realized what had happened, Caleb's eyes flew open. His entire body jolted as if struck by lightning, nearly launching him off the bed. He gasped for air in the darkness, staring in disbelief at Elias's face. The man in his arms, eyes closed, simply held him tighter, his breathing even and calm. After all, this was just a normal part of Elias's nightly routine with his plush toys. A hug, a nuzzle, a kiss, and then sleep, just like how he had kissed the sheepdog's ear earlier. For some reason, Elias felt the giant penguin in his arms suddenly grow much stiffer. But the warmth and the encroaching haze of drunkenness blurred his senses. He didn't think much of it, simply murmuring a reply. Good night to you too, giant penguin. Elias had a dream. He wasn't one to dream often, usually only on rainy nights when he was caught in fragmented, unpleasant memories, a feverish state accompanied by the sound of thunder. He would often wake up startled from such dreams. But tonight, Elias had a very good dream. He dreamed of the giant penguin, that quiet, soft, life-sized plush toy. For the first time, he held it in his dream. It was soft and warm, and he didn't want to let go. Then Elias opened his eyes. His head throbbed, his mind was foggy, a familiar after-effect of a severe bout of rain-induced fever. But he didn't feel the usual bone-deep exhaustion. Oh right, it wasn't rain this time. It was alcohol. Elias almost never touched alcohol, fully aware of the potential damage it could cause to neural pathways and its addictive properties. Of course, because he drank so rarely, he had no idea what his tolerance was. His memory was a complete blur. The last clear thing he remembered was sitting at the bar, asking Caleb if he liked Amy. He couldn't recall Caleb's answer, nor could he remember how he got home or ended up in his own bed. Elias sat up and looked beside him. The giant sheepdog was lying there, his faithful companion on rainy nights. Up to that point, Elias had assumed he'd come back from the bowling alley alone. That was until he walked out of his bedroom and into the living room, where he found Caleb sitting at the dining table, his back to him, reading a paper on his laptop. Elias was taken aback. He asked if Caleb had stayed the whole night. Caleb turned to face him. He looked composed, though his body seemed to tense for a fraction of a second when their eyes met. Elias heard the younger man's voice, slightly rough, confirm that he had. Elias didn't understand why Caleb was here. He still couldn't recall what had happened. He asked if Caleb had brought him home last night. He saw a flicker of something cross Caleb's face. The younger man opened his mouth, staring at Elias with an expression of disbelief. He questioned if he really didn't remember. Elias hesitated before confirming that he didn't. He rarely encountered things he couldn't understand, at least not in his field of research. But last night at the bar, when he tried to logically process the problem of what should I do if Caleb and Amy get together, he found he couldn't arrive at a satisfactory answer. So he turned to alcohol for assistance, knowing that a moderate amount could sometimes stimulate new lines of thought. Of course, the incredibly tempting appearance of that little bunny watermelon cocktail also played a role. Logic told him that if Caleb and Amy were about to enter a romantic relationship, he had to terminate their assistance agreement immediately. But his heart told him he didn't want that to happen, didn't even want to consider a life without Caleb. His reason and his desire were at war. The end result was that, without knowing his alcohol tolerance, he had grossly misjudged his own limits. He drank too much, and then he blacked out. He admitted he had blacked out, stating that the gin was stronger than he'd anticipated, and he had overestimated his tolerance. He tried to grasp at any detail from the previous night, but shook his head. His last memory was of them at the bowling alley. Caleb said nothing. Elias frowned, trying to recall more. He remembered wanting to confirm Caleb's relationship with Amy, as it was crucial to whether their agreement should continue. He saw Caleb's face contort slightly. He heard Caleb say, as if through gritted teeth, that he had already answered that question yesterday. Elias admitted that he knew, but had forgotten the answer. I don't like Amy. I have no intimate relationship with her, and I never will. Caleb cut him off sharply, his voice tight. He took a deep breath. Until this project is finished, I will be focused solely on my research. I have no intention of dating or getting involved with anyone, so our assistance contract can continue as normal. You can rest assured. The answer was clear, the tone firm. Elias was momentarily stunned. He managed a quiet good. He hesitated for a moment before adding his thanks for bringing him home last night. Caleb remained silent. He then asked, his voice low and raspy, if asking about Amy was his last memory of the night. Elias confirmed it was. Caleb's jaw tightened. He asked if Elias really remembered nothing of what happened after. Elias apologized, saying he truly had no recollection. He raised a hand to rub his temple, a frown creasing his brow. He asked if he had caused Caleb any trouble while he was drunk. He looked up to find Caleb staring at him intently. The expression on the younger man's face was complex, as if he had something to say but was holding it back. He saw Caleb take a silent, deep breath, then turn away the moment their eyes met. He stated stiffly that he hadn't. Elias sensed something was wrong. He started to ask if he was sure. Caleb cut him off. He repeated that Elias had not caused him any trouble at all, his voice practically a snarl. He insisted that Elias had been extremely drunk, and that after he brought him home, he fell asleep almost immediately. He took another deep breath and added, as if to cover his tracks, that he had fallen asleep hugging his sheepdog, and that he had slept very soundly. Each word seemed to be forced from between his teeth. Elias felt that Caleb had slipped back into that strange state of being inexplicably angry for reasons Elias could never fathom. He hesitated, then said, "That's good." He noticed Caleb had been staring at the same flow chart on his laptop for a long time. Trying to ease the frozen atmosphere, Elias helpfully pointed at the screen, asking if there was something Caleb didn't understand that he could explain. The next second, Caleb snapped the laptop shut. He stood up abruptly. Since Elias was awake now, he said he felt relieved. He announced that he had a meeting with Jonathan that morning and wouldn't stay any longer. He was leaving. Elias was surprised. It was still early. He glanced at the time. Jonathan didn't usually get to the lab until afternoon on a Sunday. He questioned Caleb's hurry. Tilting his head, he asked if he could make him breakfast. He played his trump card for diffusing tension. Sure enough, at the mention of breakfast, Caleb's throat bobbed. He was clearly tempted, but in the end he shook his head, turning away. He declined the breakfast, claiming he needed to prepare the data for the meeting. He said his goodbyes and left. Caleb's departure was so rushed. Elias felt his behavior was incredibly strange. After bringing him home and staying the entire night, he had a brief 5-minute conversation before leaving in a hurry. The excuse he gave was flimsy, and not even the lure of breakfast could stop him. All these signs made Elias realize that something must have happened last night. Elias stood at the door for a while, lost in thought, before returning to his bedroom to make the bed. He straightened up and stared at the oversized sheepdog plushie on the bed for a long moment. As it turned out, his intuition was correct. He soon realized that Caleb was avoiding him. Elias was generally much less perceptive than others when it came to social cues and interpersonal relationships. This was partly because he didn't really care what others thought of him, but perhaps because he considered Caleb to be special, or perhaps because Caleb's method of avoidance was so clumsy. 3 days later, Elias came to a firm conclusion. Caleb was trying to avoid being alone with him in the most inept way possible. For example, when Elias asked if he was busy that afternoon, Caleb immediately said yes, claiming he had to take images at 3 o'clock. Elias then asked if he had any free time before 3 to talk privately. Caleb insisted he was busy before 3 as well. Elias asked what his plans were. If Caleb had been talking to anyone else, they would have guessed it was an excuse and dropped the subject. But Elias wasn't anyone else. He would naturally continue to press for details. Caleb stiffly replied that he had to help defrost the -80-degree freezer. Chloe, who was working nearby, exclaimed in surprise. She asked if he was serious, calling him a saint. She reminded him that he had done it last month, and it was her turn this month. She asked if he was sure he wanted to help. Caleb replied flatly that he was sure. Elias stared calmly at Caleb's face. He said, "All right, you go ahead and get busy." The current Caleb would rather spend an entire afternoon defrosting a freezer than be alone with Elias for even a single minute. To prolong the task, after defrosting the icebox, he meticulously rearranged all the samples inside. It was physical work, and despite the extremely low temperature of the freezer, Caleb broke a light sweat. His hair, slightly damp, was casually pushed back, revealing his strong, defined brow. The sweat made his shirt cling to his body, clearly outlining the firm, handsome contours of his abs. The combination of sweat, pheromones, and raw physicality made it hard not to stare. Half an hour later, Caleb let out a breath and closed the heavy freezer door. The moment it clicked shut, he saw Elias standing beside the freezer, watching him quietly. For once, Elias's gaze wasn't on Caleb's chest or abs, but fixed intently on his face. Caleb's heart skipped a beat. Before Elias could speak, he blurted out that it was almost 3 and he had to go take his images. Elias said he had just come from the imaging room where he ran into Michael. He told him that he had booked the microscope from 3 to 5. He asked Caleb if he was sure he had the time right, or if maybe he had booked on the wrong floor. Caleb was speechless. The large -80 freezer was not frequently used, so it was placed in a narrow, secluded corner at the far end of the lab. Elias walked towards Caleb, step by step. He asked if, after he got drunk that night, he hadn't just gone straight to sleep as Caleb had claimed. Caleb's eyes widened slightly. Elias paused, then spoke with some hesitation. He said he had some very vague impressions, and asked if they were related to a plush toy. Caleb instinctively responded, asking if he remembered. The moment the words were out, he realized he'd fallen into a trap. He knew Elias hadn't actually remembered anything but was just bluffing to get a reaction. Elias's expression was one of dawning realization. He said that he had invested a lot of emotion in his plush toys. They were his primary source of warmth and belonging, like family. They had helped him a lot on rainy days, and even on nights without rain, they provided immense emotional value. He looked at Caleb. "If you continue to stay silent and avoid communicating with me, then I'll just have to continue with my own deductions." He asked, "That night when I was drunk, did I mistake you for a plush toy?" Caleb's eyes flew open in disbelief. He had seen many people black out from drinking, but he had never seen anyone who could, without any outside information, deduce the situation so accurately. Watching the change in Caleb's expression, Elias continued thoughtfully. He guessed that he had treated him like a toy and insisted on holding him and sleeping with him that night. Caleb was stunned for a moment. "So that's not it." Elias immediately negated his own theory, observing Caleb's face. "Which means I did something even worse than that." A sudden heat flared in Caleb's throat. He couldn't believe that without him saying a single word, Elias had already guessed 90% of the truth just by reading his expressions. He realized he couldn't stay silent any longer. He forced himself to speak, his voice strained. "It was just as you said. You mistook me for a toy that night and held me while you slept. That's all." Elias asked if that was really it, but said he didn't think so. During our previous physical contact, he recalled, you had grown much more accustomed to touches on the chest and stomach. Logically, if we had only slept while holding each other, you shouldn't be having such a strong reaction now. Caleb felt his breathing quicken. Elias looked at him thoughtfully and made a soft sound of understanding. "I get it. I also kissed you that night, didn't I?" he asked calmly. Caleb admitted to himself that he had indeed been avoiding Elias for the past 2 days. As a 23-year-old adult, he had been flustered and distracted for days over a drunken kiss on the cheek. It wasn't exactly something to be proud of, especially when the one who kissed him was a senior who was already notoriously lacking in a sense of personal space. What was even more infuriating was that this person, after sobering up, had blissfully forgotten everything, becoming the most carefree person in the world. Only Caleb was left to be tormented by the memory of that night, as if he were being roasted over and over. Whenever he had a spare moment, his mind would uncontrollably replay every detail. Elias leaning against him intimately, the soft touch of his lips, the faint smell of alcohol mixed with his usual scent of fresh botanicals. The reason this light kiss had unsettled him so much was because at that moment, Elias's consciousness wasn't impaired by rain. He wasn't seeking physical contact out of physical necessity. He had initiated the kiss. Caleb's mind was a mess. As someone who had spent years in Europe, he was no stranger to cheek kisses as a form of greeting among close friends. But that night, holding Elias and being kissed by him, he knew deep down that the feeling was completely different from his interactions with those friends. It was like an electric shock, his cerebral cortex seeming to tremble along with it. Just thinking about it made his breath hot. Meanwhile, because Caleb had been spacing out for too long without speaking, Elias, standing opposite him, showed a look of surprise. He said softly, "So I really did that night." The air seemed to solidify for a moment. Finally, Caleb's voice came out hoarse. "Yes." Elias was silent for a moment. Face or lips? Only Caleb knew that the kiss that night had been on the corner of his mouth, a hair's breadth from his lips. But since it wasn't a full mouth-to-mouth, lip-to-lip kiss, he firmly classified it as a cheek kiss. Elias was quiet for a long time. He apologized, acknowledging that kissing was definitely not part of their rainy day assistance agreement and that he had crossed a line. He showed a rare expression of difficulty, hesitating as he explained that he hadn't properly estimated his alcohol tolerance, which led to such consequences. He clarified that while his state on rainy days was not good, he never lost consciousness completely like he did after drinking. "I don't mind," Caleb cut in. Elias paused. "What?" He looked up at Caleb, a bit lost. But the young man in front of him was looking away. Caleb spoke with a feigned calmness. "I said, I don't know what you're thinking, but I don't mind. You know I have European roots. I was born in the UK, went back there for high school. My friends and I used to have loud parties, and there were times when we drank a lot and things got wild." Caleb explained nonchalantly, his brown eyes like translucent amber under the fluorescent lights. "People do embarrassing things when they're drunk, things that go beyond their usual boundaries. So what I mean is, I don't really care about what happened that night. You don't need to dwell on it." Elias hadn't expected such a magnanimous response. He was silent for a moment before nodding. "So you're really okay with it?" "Of course," Caleb said, looking firmly into Elias's eyes. "Or do you have a problem, senior?" Elias thought for a moment and said he didn't. Caleb nodded. "So we can act like nothing happened that night, and everything can go back to normal." Elias frowned slightly. "But are you sure you're really okay? Because I feel like I'm sure." Caleb cut him off. Elias was silent for a moment. "But Caleb took a deep breath. "I said I don't have a problem. I'm very sure and certain. So, senior, you really don't need to blame yourself or keep asking about it." Caleb's ears were tinged with a faint, imperceptible pink from his emotional agitation. "If you really feel that bad about your actions that night, you can try coming to the next team event. Everyone was really surprised and happy that you were willing to come out that night. I was happy too. As for what happened, I really don't care. I'm a very open person. Getting you home safely and seeing you wake up safely was my only concern at the time. In fact, if you hadn't brought it up today, I would have almost forgotten what happened. Caleb spoke faster and faster. And please rest assured that Knight's experience will not affect our interactions on rainy days in the future. So could you please just stop asking about it? Caleb said a great deal in one breath. Only after he finished did he look at Elias's face. He found Elias staring at him with some surprise. After a long moment, Elias finally spoke. Okay. At the same time, he pointed behind Caleb. Actually, I was just trying to tell you that the freezer door doesn't seem to be closed properly. I think it's because a row of sample boxes is crooked. You probably need to adjust it because those samples are quite expensive. Caleb turned his head stiffly and saw that there was indeed a crack in the freezer door. He frantically opened the door and found that a row of sample boxes was not pushed in all the way. He took a deep breath and raised his hands to try and rearrange the samples. But whether it was because he was too flustered or because the temperature near the freezer was too low, his hands were trembling slightly. After trying for a long time, he still couldn't get the boxes to fit perfectly. He heard a soft sigh from beside him. Elias reached out and, with a simple tap of his index finger on the edge of each sample box, the entire row slid obediently into the freezer. Elias didn't say anything more. He just calmly and firmly closed the freezer door before speaking. All right, I won't disturb you anymore. Even after learning that Elias didn't remember everything that happened that night, Caleb's mind was a mess. Now, even though they had seemingly talked everything through and life had returned to normal, Caleb found his mood was still inexplicably agitated. So after work that day, he went to the gym trying to distract himself with a workout. However, after doing a few sets of anaerobic exercises with his mind elsewhere, he found that he was completely out of it. Every muscle in his body seemed to be fighting against his will, and his efficiency was extremely low. Defeated, he gave up, took a shower, and returned to the locker room. Caleb took his phone out of his locker. He hesitated for a moment, and just as he was about to open the weather app to check the forecast for the week, he saw a few messages pop up in the lab group chat, the Worm family. Unsurprisingly, it was Chloe, the resident loudmouth. The group chat was quiet for a moment before Chloe dropped a link. The title was Magic Jack All-UK Tour London. The moment he saw the words Magic Jack, Caleb's eyelid twitched. Caleb wasn't a big arts person. The Phantom of the Opera and Les Miserables were the extent of his knowledge of musical theater. But even with his limited cultural exposure, the name Magic Jack set off alarm bells. He had a gut feeling that something was very wrong. He vaguely understood why another colleague had been so adamant about not going. Caleb hesitated before clicking the link. What greeted him was a brief but explosive description designed to grab the audience's attention. Magic Jack, London's hottest all-male revue. Up close and personal interactions with the performers. An incredibly immersive stage experience. At the same time, a new message popped up in the group chat from Eugene Xia. Okay. Received. Caleb, I swear it's not that kind of weird show, Chloe explained for the umpteenth time, patting her chest reassuringly. It's art. It's a performance, an immersive experience. Every single performer is incredibly professional. It's physically demanding, and the whole show has a storyline. It's a very legitimate art form. Caleb stared blankly at Chloe's face in the lab the next day. Right, except that as the show goes on, the performer's clothes just disappear. Is that it? Chloe's eyes darted around guiltily. She finally offered a weak rebuttal. Well, to be precise, they probably still have their pants on at the end. Caleb gave her a smile that didn't reach his eyes. A coworker, Jessica, walked past them with a reagent. casting a sympathetic glance at Caleb. She reminded him that she had warned him in the group chat to think carefully. "Fine, you can say Jessica and I are shameless. We were indeed swayed by lust," Chloe said, thinking Caleb couldn't accept such a progressive performance style. She began to earnestly try and persuade him. "But look, after I sent the show's introduction to the group, Elias didn't say a word. He's probably not that interested in this kind of performance, but he was able to accept it so calmly. So, Caleb, you really need to see more of the world." If she hadn't mentioned Elias, it would have been fine. But now that she had, Caleb's expression darkened even more. Elias wouldn't be interested? Caleb sneered inwardly. On the contrary, Elias would probably be the most interested person in the entire audience. He'd probably want to bring a microscope to get a closer look. And I heard all the performers are super handsome, with rock-hard abs. They're bold, they can dance, and the atmosphere is supposed to be amazing. I can't wait, Chloe said, placing her beaker in the sink, lost in a daydream. She didn't forget to flatter Caleb. "But don't worry, Caleb. In our hearts, you'll always be the one with the best body. The #1 male model in the lab will always be you." She carefully added, "Oh, right, I forgot to tell you we have front row VVIP tickets. So the view should be pretty intense. We might even get to participate in the interactive segments. Just be mentally prepared." Chloe didn't dare look at Caleb's face anymore. She turned around, pretending to be busy. "Oh my gosh, I still have to put this culture medium in the incubator. Talk to you later, Caleb." Chloe grabbed the rack of culture medium and fled. Caleb let out a breath and turned off his microscope. He couldn't help but glance through the gaps between the reagent bottles at Elias, who was standing at the lab bench. After a moment's hesitation, he walked towards him. Elias was preparing a solution. Most of the time in the lab, because he needed to use the microscope, Elias would wear his thin-rimmed glasses. His expression was focused, his side profile elegant and serene. Everyone who passed by him would subconsciously hold their breath, afraid to disturb him. Elias looked up and his eyes met Caleb's. He told him he was here. He was trying to use the liposome drug delivery method mentioned in Caleb's previous paper, thinking it might be possible to combine it with the rapamycin they were currently testing. He frowned. He wasn't very familiar with this method and couldn't figure out why the extruder was so difficult to operate, though he had checked and it wasn't an assembly issue. Caleb's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected Elias to have studied his previously published paper so thoroughly. Caleb had published that paper a while ago. Last year, he still saw himself as a rising star in the research world. This year, looking back, he found it a bit immature and embarrassing. He knew Elias had read it, but he didn't know he had read it so carefully. Caleb checked it and confirmed it wasn't an assembly problem. The drug was just hard to push, since there were 3 filter membranes inside. He offered to demonstrate. Elias nodded and stepped aside. The so-called extruder consisted of 2 glass syringe-like devices, with a white lipid solution in the middle, inserted head-to-head into a heated metal block. The metal block had 3 filter membranes inside. By pushing the drug back and forth between the membranes, the drug and the liposomes would be thoroughly and evenly mixed. "I usually use the palm of my hand, not my thumb, to push," Caleb explained as he demonstrated, using the force of his palm. "Be careful not to get burned by the heated metal block. And you have to use a bit of finesse, not brute force." He easily pushed the solution from one syringe to the other. Just like that. Elias watched intently. He asked if he could try. Caleb moved aside. Elias tentatively tried to push, but the syringe didn't budge. He frowned and applied more pressure with his palm. But he used too much force and the pressure was too great. A portion of the solution leaked out from the middle of the device, creating a small, winding white river on the tabletop. Caleb explained that his point of force was wrong. While pushing with his left hand, he needed to steady it with his right, but without providing any opposing force. Elias commented that his description sounded useful in theory, but was too superficial to be of much practical help. Caleb sighed. "Senior, stand still." The next moment, Elias felt a shadow fall over him from behind. Caleb hesitated for a moment before wrapping his arms around Elias from behind, his hands covering Elias's. Elias froze. He heard the younger man's voice, slightly hoarse, from behind him. "Now I'll teach you how to push in a not-so-superficial way. Pay close attention to how I'm applying force." They were both wearing rubber gloves, so in theory, they shouldn't be able to feel each other's body temperature clearly. However, the moment Caleb's palm covered the back of Elias's hand, Elias felt a faint heat spread across his skin. As soon as he finished speaking, Caleb began to apply force, guiding Elias's hands forward. The solution in one syringe began to slowly flow to the other side. "That's the kind of force," Caleb said. "Easy on the wrist. It's hard to get the hang of it at first, but you'll get used to it after a few tries. I probably pushed about 100 tubes last year. So next time you need it, you can just let me know in advance and I can prepare it for you." The young man's hot breath was close to his ear. Elias felt a slight tickle at the nape of his neck. He lowered his head and gave a soft hum of agreement. Even though some leaked, there's still about 500 microliters left, which is enough for this time, Elias said, checking the reading on the syringe and looking at Caleb's face. "I'll do a simple test first. If the results are good, we can expand on the current project." Caleb agreed. He finally released Elias's hands and stepped back, putting some distance between them. They were both silent for a moment before returning to their respective tasks. Caleb picked up a wipe to clean the spilled solution from the tabletop, while Elias placed the newly prepared solution into a centrifuge tube. No one spoke. Ever since the drunken cheek kiss incident, the atmosphere was always a bit subtly awkward whenever Caleb and Elias were alone together. The slightest silence seemed to become unbearable. Of course, maybe only Caleb felt this way. Elias, after all, looked as calm as ever. Caleb finally cleared his throat. "Oh right. You know Chloe, she's always been a bit out of line." He brought up the topic nonchalantly. "About the show on Monday, if you don't want to go, you don't have to force yourself. Just tell her you have something else to do. I know you only agreed because I told you to try and participate more in team-building activities." Caleb paused and took a deep breath. "But you don't have to go every single time. Just do whatever makes you comfortable. It's okay. Since I've already agreed this time, it's better to keep my promise," Elias said, placing the solution in the fridge and turning to face Caleb. "But for next time, I will indeed prioritize my own schedule before deciding whether to participate in such activities." Caleb was silent for a moment before humming in agreement. "But thinking about it, that show ends really late." A moment later, Caleb spoke again, rather abruptly. "It'll probably be past midnight when it's over. I wonder if it will affect our work efficiency the next day." Elias thought for a moment and said that the progress on their current project was fast and stable. The behavioral analysis required waiting for the adult flies to be 7 days old, so they didn't have many experiments scheduled before next Wednesday. Caleb fell silent. He turned on the faucet and lowered his head, washing the used syringe while speaking. "But I heard the format of that show is pretty novel. Most of the audience is female. I wonder if it will be a bit awkward for two guys to go." "I personally don't see that as a problem," Elias said. "Art itself shouldn't be constrained by gender. Everyone has the right to appreciate it, don't they?" The sound of the running water didn't stop. Caleb didn't speak again for a long time, seemingly focused on cleaning the instrument in his hands. Elias didn't think much of it and reached up to close the refrigerator door. The next moment, he heard Caleb suddenly mutter from behind him, "I think you really want to go, don't you?" The water was running loudly, and Caleb's voice was very low. Elias didn't catch it. He paused and looked back at Caleb, asking what he had said. Caleb didn't speak. His jaw was tight. After a moment, he reached out and turned off the faucet. He spoke stiffly. "Nothing." Elias hummed, thinking he must have misheard. "But the reason I agreed to go," Elias said, "is also because I knew you would definitely be there." Caleb straightened up from the sink, stunned. "How did you know I would definitely go?" "Part of it was intuition," Elias said. "And I've noticed that whenever someone asks you for help, even though you look reluctant, you never refuse. You seem to have a hard time saying no to people." Elias calmly summarized, "Your kindness and helpfulness are your strengths. They're what makes you attractive. But at the same time, a large part of the trouble in your life also stems from this." For a moment, Caleb really wanted to argue, but Elias had hit the nail on the head. And what was more terrifying was that Caleb had many friends, but so far, the fact that his troubles also stemmed from his kindness was something only he himself knew. And now, Elias added, "But from my perspective, I really like this trait of yours. At least, you didn't refuse my request for mutual help after you understood the situation." Caleb's body tensed. He opened his mouth, about to ask why Elias would agree to go just because he was going, when Elias looked up at the time. "Well, that's about it for today's work. I should be heading home." He looked up at Caleb. "See you on Monday night?" After a long pause, Caleb's voice came out dry. "Okay. See you Monday. Monday night, 9:10. 20 minutes before the show's doors opened, Elias got out of a taxi and arrived at the designated theater entrance. Jessica and Chloe were already there, both wearing light makeup and dressed to the nines. It was clear they had been genuinely looking forward to tonight's performance for a long time. Seeing Elias, Jessica waved him over. "You're here. Here, take your ticket." Elias took the ticket and thanked her politely. "Don't mention it," Jessica said with a wink. "I'm so glad you could come. It would have been a real shame to waste such good seats. But Elias, just a heads up, Jessica and I might get a little crazy tonight." Chloe added shyly, "Please don't mind us. If we get too out of hand, please try to restrain us. Anyway, thank you and Caleb for being our knights in shining armor for the night." Elias said it was no problem and that they should enjoy the show. "Speaking of which, where is our other knight in shining armor?" Jessica asked Chloe next to her. "Why isn't he here yet? Send him a text and hurry him up. We have 10 minutes before they let us in." Chloe took out her phone, looking a little puzzled. "That's weird. What's up with Caleb today? I'll text him first." "Okay, let's wait another 5 minutes. If not, I'll start calling him." 5 minutes later, Chloe scratched her head. He didn't reply. "I guess I'll call." She had just dialed the number when she casually glanced up at the street and froze. "Hey, is that?" Jessica looked over and was also stunned. "Oh my God." Chloe covered her mouth. Elias followed their gaze, and his movements also froze. The London summer night was warm, with a gentle breeze. On the brightly lit, bustling street, Elias saw Caleb walking towards them. The street was crowded, but Caleb's height made him stand out. Elias spotted him almost immediately. His mixed-race features were already striking, and today he had styled his hair simply, revealing his entire forehead and brows, making him look sharp and untamed. His features were handsome, but what was truly eye-catching wasn't just his face. Caleb was wearing a dark, high-quality linen short-sleeved shirt. The overall style was simple and elegant, with a nice texture and clean, flowing lines. "Sorry, I'm a bit late," Caleb said, stopping in front of them. He sounded calm and relaxed. "Traffic was a bit heavy. Shall we go in now?" From 9:30 until 10 minutes before the show started, the theater was queuing for ticket checks. After all, it was the hottest male dance performance in London's West End. Even late at night, the theater was packed. The audience was already lining up at the entrance. About 95% of the audience was female, and from Caleb's observation, a large portion of the remaining 5% male audience was probably more emotionally sensitive than the women. This made Caleb and Elias stand out even more in the crowd. Since the performance was geared towards an adult audience, they needed to check IDs at the entrance. Caleb had just taken his ID out of his wallet when he felt a tap on his shoulder. It was two young British women. They seemed to have mustered up their courage to ask Caleb, "Excuse me, are you one of the performers in this show? Can we take a picture with you?" Caleb was taken aback. "I'm not." The two women looked at each other in confusion, sizing Caleb up. "Oh, well, can we still take a picture with you?" Caleb stiffly took a picture with the two women. When he turned back, he found the other three looking at him with strange expressions. "What's with that look?" Chloe covered her eyes with her hand, but peeked through her fingers, as if she wanted to look but didn't dare. "Caleb, I'm not looking at you at all. I'm looking at the line in front of us." "What a long line." "No, not long, what a strong line." "No, wait, what a pale line." Jessica, however, was not so subtle. She looked thoughtfully at Caleb's chest and asked directly, "What's going on, kid? Changed your style? I've never seen you dress like this before." Caleb coughed. "It's hot today, you know? And I thought it would be crowded during the show, so I just threw on something light and breathable." Jessica looked at him meaningfully. "Just threw something on. Huh? But I've never seen you wear something like this when it was hot before." Caleb felt like the two of them were seeing right through him. All right, he said, his ears burning. He gently pushed Chloe and Jessica in front of him. "You two ladies, get in line and watch your bags and phones. Stop staring at me. There will be plenty of handsome men for you to judge once we get inside." After settling Chloe and Jessica, Caleb let out a breath and couldn't help but turn to look at Elias behind him. Elias hadn't questioned him like Jessica, nor had he reacted as strongly as Chloe. He stood behind Caleb, looking as calm as ever. Caleb felt a little frustrated. He glanced down at his own chest. He had spent the entire morning choosing this outfit, from the style to the cut, going through a rigorous selection process to find the perfect one. The goal was to create an effortlessly stunning look. At first, he worried it would look too flashy, but he also feared it wouldn't have enough impact. In the end, he gritted his teeth and wore it out, feeling a bit self-conscious. Why didn't Elias have any reaction at all? As his thoughts wandered, Caleb had already followed the crowd into the performance hall. Their tickets corresponded to one of the tables closest to the stage, a round table with 4 chairs. 2 of the chairs were placed closer to the stage, while the other 2 were further back. Suddenly, Caleb spoke up. "Chloe, Jessica, you two sit in the front. You'll have a better view and it'll be easier to interact with the performers." Chloe was already about to sit in the back seat. After Caleb's reminder, she realized her mistake. "Oh, you're right. But what about you and Elias?" Caleb turned to Elias and raised an eyebrow. Elias looked at Caleb's face for a long moment before speaking. "It's okay, we'll sit in the back. Your enjoyment is the most important thing." Chloe, saying, "You're the best, Elias," happily moved to the front row with Jessica. A waiter promptly handed them a menu. "Here's the menu. You can take a look. We have some signature cocktails, and the champagne is also very popular." Elias opened the menu and browsed for a while. He was about to point out a cute-looking cocktail decorated with a cherry to the waiter when Caleb suddenly placed his hand directly on his menu. Elias looked at Caleb. "No drinking," Caleb said. Elias asked why not. Caleb sighed. "This cocktail may look harmless, but its base is vodka. Senior, have you forgotten the consequences of drinking a similar drink last time?" Elias frowned but couldn't argue. Caleb added, "As a witness and victim of your last drunken episode, I have a duty to stop you today. If you don't mind, I can order for you." Elias pushed the menu towards Caleb. "You do it." Caleb calmly closed the menu and said to the waiter, "2 Cokes, please." The waiter was surprised. For a thrilling performance like this, people usually wanted to let loose. Ordering Cokes was quite unusual. Even the ladies would order low-alcohol drinks, let alone 2 young men. 10 minutes later, 2 glasses of Coke were placed in front of them. The brown liquid was in a glass, decorated with a slice of green lime. Tiny bubbles rose densely to the surface. The performance began. It was much as Caleb had expected. A group of tall, muscular male performers appeared on stage. At first, they were in suits, a sort of formal wear play. As the plot progressed, their clothes came off one by one. Caleb was mentally prepared, but he hadn't expected them to undress so quickly and so completely. The air was filled with screams. Caleb's hand unconsciously tightened around his glass. Each performer was a skilled dancer and knew how to showcase every part of their body. In the front row, Chloe and Jessica, a pair of sisters in spirit, held hands for support, their voices nearly hoarse from screaming. Caleb couldn't help but glance at the person next to him. Elias's expression was calm. He sat up straight, watching with intense focus. He didn't look like a spectator in a noisy, decadent nightclub, but rather like a visitor in an art gallery, meticulously appreciating the brushstrokes of each painting. "He's watching so intently," Caleb thought. His jaw tightened slightly. He turned away and took a big gulp of ice-cold Coke. Soon, it was time for the audience interaction segment. The interaction was an exclusive benefit for VIP guests. Dozens of performers came down from the stage and began to interact closely with the guests. There were about a dozen tables in the VIP area, and it was usually 2 performers per table. The 2 who came to their table split up. One went to interact with Chloe and Jessica in the front, while the other danced his way to the back row, in front of Caleb and Elias. The man was a blonde, blue-eyed foreigner. He was clearly taken aback to see 2 men sitting in the VVIP seats. Caleb politely gestured with his eyes, indicating that he was just accompanying the 2 ladies in front. The man paused, then understood, smiling and nodding. However, this blonde performer was very professional and had a strong desire to perform. He was determined to give every guest a perfect experience. Although Caleb had declined his personal services, there was still Elias sitting next to him. The man first observed Elias, noting that he was an elegant, aloof, and beautiful Asian man. He danced along with the music, walked up to Elias, and, in time with the beat of the background music, lifted his tank top with a big smile and pointed to Elias's hand. "You can touch," he mouthed. Elias looked up, regarding him thoughtfully. The man smiled and winked at him. However, the next moment, a hand suddenly appeared out of nowhere, beating Elias to it and landing on the performer's abs. The performer felt something was off. He looked down, and his expression became complicated. Elias was also stunned. He looked at Caleb beside him. Caleb's hand was on the performer's abs, casually feeling them. He praised him with a look of genuine admiration. "Bro, your abs are well defined." The performer had heard such compliments from female audience members countless times. But when it came from a very straight-laced male guest, especially one who was in great shape himself, the situation became a bit strange. It no longer felt like the flirtatious interaction it was designed to be, but more like a gym bro discussion. The performer looked at Caleb's hand on his abs, then at Elias. His mind raced with various possibilities, and his expression momentarily flickered with something like alarm. But in the end, he professionally maintained his composure. "Thanks." Caleb finally removed his hand. "You're welcome." Perhaps it was their policy to ensure every guest had a perfect experience. The dedicated blonde performer looked at Elias and hesitated. "If you still want to touch, you can do it now." But he hadn't even finished his sentence when Caleb, who had just lowered his left hand, placed his right hand on the performer's abs again. Caleb asked very politely, "Oh, right, if you don't mind, could you tell me what kind of exercises you usually do?" The performer was completely caught off guard. Usually just crunches, hanging leg raises, things like that. Caleb made a sound of understanding and removed his hand. "I see. Thanks for the tip." The performer-audience interaction time was short, less than 2 minutes. Caleb's left hand and then his right hand had seamlessly taken over, and with the added conversation, the interaction time was used up. In the same amount of time, Chloe and Jessica in the front had enjoyed touching abs, getting lap dances, and other up-close interactions. The two of them were screaming so loudly they were about to bring the roof down. But Elias hadn't even touched a single strand of the blonde performer's hair. The blonde performer gave Elias an apologetic look, but as the background music changed, he had to return to the stage to join the other performers for the next part of the show. After the performer left, Elias and Caleb were quiet for a moment. Caleb picked up his Coke and took a casual sip. "Oh, sorry about that. I kind of took up your interaction time without realizing." Though he said that there was no apology in his tone. "You know how it is, senior. When you see someone in the gym who's in great shape, you can't help but talk about fitness tips." The stage lights flickered and changed. Elias turned to look at Caleb. After a long moment, he said, "It's okay." They looked at each other in silence for a moment. Caleb suddenly asked, "That performer just now, he had a great body, right?" Elias replied he was very professional. Professional was too vague a word. Caleb didn't know what he was thinking, but he stared at Elias's face and, without thinking, pressed on. "So, was it good or not?" Elias thought for a moment before answering. "Actually, the most attractive thing about a person's physique to me has never been the shape or size of their muscles, but the feel. So without being able to touch, I can't give an objective and accurate evaluation." Of course, he looked at Caleb. "I did have one chance to touch. Or rather, two." Caleb replied that he was very sorry about that. Elias shook his head and said it was okay. But what did his abs feel like? Caleb's hand, holding the Coke glass, tightened imperceptibly. He lifted his head and took a big gulp. It just felt like muscle. He gave a vague description. "Hard, fleshy texture. Normal muscles all feel like that." Caleb specifically emphasized the word normal. After a while, he heard Elias hum in agreement. "That's about what I expected." When he was standing in front of me, I observed the shape of his abs and chest. I didn't think they would be nice to touch. The feel should be quite hard. Elias analyzed thoughtfully. "I think it's the result of them frequently going to the gym to maintain a very low body fat percentage, to make their muscle definition clear for the stage performance. They maintain their form very well, but at the same time, they lose some of the feel." Elias commented, "But they are very disciplined. To be able to maintain such a state long-term is very professional and not easy." Caleb lifted his head and took another gulp of Coke. He said dryly, "You were looking quite closely just now." Elias gave a soft hum of agreement. After a while, Caleb couldn't help but ask, "If even that isn't good enough for you, what is your favorite type of muscle?" Elias replied, "I like muscles with clear definition, but with just the right amount of fat. Firm enough when tensed, but with a soft feel when relaxed. A slight imbalance in body composition, and you won't achieve that effect. After all, the feel is always the most important thing to me. Of course, such a physique is very rare." He's describing it in such detail, Caleb thought. Unconsciously, he had finished his entire glass of Coke. That type you like is really hard to find. Caleb put down the empty glass and said, his voice dry, "How can someone's body be both soft and hard? It doesn't exist. You can't train for that." Elias said, "It does exist." Caleb insisted it was impossible. Elias repeated, "It really does exist." Caleb retorted, "Impossible. I know more about fitness than you do." Caleb heard Elias let out a very soft sigh, almost lost in the loud background music. The next second, Elias leaned closer, his hand reaching for the collar of Caleb's shirt. His fingers slowly slid down, gently tracing the edge of the V-neck, his fingertips a hair's breadth from touching Caleb's chest. Caleb froze. "What are you doing?" "Someone like you is what I mean," Elias said. The next second, Elias directly pressed his index finger against Caleb's chest muscle. His fingertip pressed against the soft layer of skin and fat on his chest, then met the firm muscle beneath and stopped. Elias's fingertip was slightly cool, landing right over Caleb's heart. "See, just like this. Your chest felt soft just now." Elias lifted his fingertip and, as he spoke, poked him again, softly explaining, "But now that you've noticed I'm touching you, you're getting nervous, so your muscles become slightly harder." Caleb's eyes widened slightly. As Elias's fingertip tapped on his chest, his heart began to beat wildly in time with the rhythm of the background music. "Oh, right. Because it was crowded just now, I didn't get a chance to tell you. I really like the shirt you're wearing today," Elias said. "Thanks," Caleb managed. They were both silent for a moment. "But I remember Jessica and Chloe saying at the entrance that they had never seen you wear clothes like this when you went out with them before." The stage lights flickered. Elias turned his head to look at Caleb, his eyes dark and calm. He leaned close to Caleb's ear and whispered, "So, did you wear this for me today?" Caleb found that many of the things Elias said had a strange, flirtatious quality. If a normal person said things like, "I like your chest muscles," "I really like what you're wearing today," or "Did you wear this especially for me?" it would undoubtedly be flirting. But Elias always had a calm expression, unaware of the implications of his words, because he was genuinely just expressing the literal meaning of his sentences. Caleb knew this very well, but every time he heard it, he couldn't control his own heartbeat. He struggled to keep his expression neutral. "I didn't. It was just hot today, so I grabbed a random shirt from my closet." Anyone else would have heard the defensive tone in Caleb's voice, but Elias wouldn't overthink it. He simply nodded. "I see. It looks very good." Then Elias generously gave his opinion. "It suits you very well. I hope you can wear similar styles more often in the future." He couldn't form a complete sentence in response. For the remaining half hour of the performance, Caleb didn't speak again. Elias didn't say much either, continuing to watch the performance quietly. Caleb didn't see a single one of the performers who were working so hard on stage. Instead, Elias's few words had made him feel parched. He had to ask the waiter for 2 more refills of ice-cold Coke to quell the heat in his throat. After the performance ended, Caleb immediately went to the restroom. He adjusted his collar, making sure he maintained a look of nonchalant ease, before finally letting out a breath and walking out. The show was over, and most of the regular audience had left. But the VIP guests hadn't gone anywhere, because they could enjoy a special after-show perk: taking pictures with their favorite performers. As soon as Caleb walked out of the restroom, he saw Chloe and Jessica from a distance, surrounded by several performers, striking various poses. Elias was holding a phone, taking pictures for them. After a few shots, Elias handed the phone back to them and walked over to the window to wait quietly. At the same time, he looked up at the sky outside. Caleb was about to walk over when he saw someone approach Elias. It was the blonde, blue-eyed performer who had served them earlier. The blonde performer probably felt guilty about his inadequate service earlier. He proactively walked up to Elias and pointed at the phone in Elias's hand, as if asking if he wanted a picture. Elias shook his head. Caleb's lips curved up slightly. He strode in their direction, lowering his head to readjust his collar again. However, the moment he looked up again, Caleb's steps came to a sudden halt, because he saw that Elias had, at some point, leaned close to the blonde performer's ear and whispered something. They were too far away for Caleb to hear clearly, but it seemed to be a question. The performer paused, looking up at Elias with some surprise. After a moment, he smiled flirtatiously and nodded, as if saying yes. Elias nodded back. The performer took a pen out of his pocket. However, both of them fumbled in their pockets and found nothing to write on. Elias held out his hand, palm up. Caleb faintly heard him say, "Write it here." The performer's blue eyes were smiling. He took Elias's hand with some intimacy and wrote something with a smile. Caleb heard him ask if that was okay. "It is," Caleb heard Elias say. "Thank you." At 11:30 at night, the group walked out of the theater. "I've decided," Chloe said, letting out a breath and clenching her fist. "From now on, my life goal is to come here once a month." It was pure bliss. Utter bliss. I feel like I was in a dream. Jessica was also still savoring the experience. "Next time, I want to book the seats on the west side. I heard you have a chance to get up close and personal with the lead performer. The one who dances in the middle in jeans." Chloe covered her face. "I know him. I know him. I made eye contact with him several times. I wanted to take a picture with him just now, but I think he was surrounded by a group of wealthy Middle Eastern women." Caleb said, "It's time for you two to return to the real world." Chloe and Jessica reluctantly hailed a cab. It wasn't safe for two young women to wait for a cab on the street after watching such a show late at night. So Caleb and Elias waited with them until they got into a cab together before they felt at ease. The gentle summer night breeze blew past. After Chloe and Jessica left, the air became quiet again. Before Elias could say anything, he heard Caleb suddenly speak. "I'm a little hungry. Want to walk around and get something to eat?" It was a rather abrupt suggestion. After all, there had been various free snacks and treats on the table during the performance, but Caleb hadn't eaten any of them. But Elias hesitated for a moment before saying, "Okay." They were in the busiest part of Boston. Even late at night, the streets were bustling with traffic and bright lights. Most restaurants were closed at this hour, but near the theater, where there was more foot traffic, there were still some food trucks selling popular snacks. Caleb finally chose churros. The golden, crispy churros were paired with a sweet chocolate sauce. The night air had a hint of a barely perceptible chill, but the dessert in his hand was freshly made and warm. "Senior." Elias had just taken his first bite when he heard Caleb ask if he could hold his portion for a moment, as his shoelace had come undone. Elias paused, then nodded and held out his hand. Caleb handed his churros to Elias. It might have been Elias's imagination, but for a split second as he took the snack, He felt Caleb glance at the palm of his right hand. Caleb quickly looked away. He bent down to tie his shoelace, then stood up again. When he looked up, his expression was neutral. He simply held out his hand to Elias again. "Thanks." Elias placed the churros back in Caleb's hand. They found a bench on a quiet side street and sat down. Elias had just looked up at the sky when he heard the young man beside him suddenly ask, "So, overall, what did you think of the viewing experience today?" Elias thought for a moment. The lighting and atmosphere at the venue were very good. The performers were also very dedicated. Although the story's ending was a bit rushed, that was probably an issue with the scriptwriter. Overall, the good outweighed the bad, he commented. He heard Caleb say, "Oh, and then, so you liked it quite a bit, then." The quality of the performance was decent, but Elias felt that liked was a bit of an exaggeration. He was hesitating on how to correct him when he heard Caleb speak again. "If you liked it, you liked it. You don't have to hide it from me." Elias was stunned, not understanding what he meant. The young man beside him was biting into a churro, mumbling to himself. "You don't have to say you don't like it while thinking something else. Just be honest. I won't judge you." Elias finally realized there was a hidden meaning in Caleb's words. He looked at Caleb's face. "I don't understand what you're talking about." Caleb turned away, his voice hoarse. "I think you do." Elias insisted he didn't. Caleb's throat moved slightly. He struggled to swallow the churro in his mouth, but he never looked at Elias. After a long time he spoke, his voice dry. "I saw you just now. You asked him for his contact information. Are you still going to hide it from me?" Elias was bewildered. Contact information? Caleb finally turned his head and stared at Elias's face, a look of disbelief on his own. "Are you still acting?" was written all over it. His chest heaved a few times, as if he were trying to suppress his anger. He grabbed Elias's dessert with one hand and Elias's right hand with the other. He forcefully pried open Elias's fingers. "Then tell me what this is." Elias looked at Caleb in astonishment. "What are you?" The moment Caleb pried open his hand, Elias instinctively tried to pull it back. It was undoubtedly a gesture of concealment. Caleb caught it clearly. He tried to suppress the sour feeling in his heart and forced himself to stay calm. At the same time, he looked down at Elias's palm and froze. There was indeed something written on Elias's palm, but it wasn't a phone number. It was text, followed by a string of numbers. It seemed to be an address. In an instant, Caleb felt the fire that had been smoldering in his chest burn even hotter. He looked into Elias's eyes, feeling that he was being completely unreasonable. "So, you didn't even ask for his phone number, you just went straight for his address?" Elias looked at Caleb's face, hesitating for a moment before speaking. "Yes." Caleb was so angry he could barely speak. His jaw was clenched tight. He turned his head away and sneered. "Amazing, senior. You're really something. You meet someone for the first time and you ask for their private address. You're just a private address?" Elias interrupted him, his brows slightly furrowed. "I was asking for the store's address." The air suddenly went still for a moment. Caleb was dumbfounded. "The store?" Elias explained, "Yes, the clothing store. I really liked the gray tank top he was wearing. The fit was great, it really highlighted his waist and shoulder ratio. And there was some delicate embroidery on the hem. I thought it would look even better on you because your shoulders are much broader than his. So I asked him for the store's address. He's Italian, so he gave me an Italian store name. I couldn't remember the full name, and I didn't have any paper at the time, so I had him write it on my hand." Caleb's eyes trembled. "You've helped me so many times on rainy days. Even last time when I was drunk and it wasn't raining, you still took me home. So I wanted to get you a gift. Elias frowned, looking a bit troubled. He sighed. But now that you know, the surprise is gone. I guess I'll have to pick something else. So the address you asked him for was a clothing store to buy me clothes? Yes. I'm a little curious. What made you think I would need his contact information? Elias waited for a long time but didn't get an answer. The young man sitting next to him seemed to have turned to stone. After a while, Caleb silently turned around, clumsily and awkwardly stuffing the churros he had just taken back into Elias's hands. Elias hesitated. I don't know. I just had a feeling. Caleb gritted his teeth and took a deep breath, deciding to just be honest. Senior, whenever you talk about abs and chest muscles, you light up. And you usually avoid social activities like the plague, but this time you were so proactive about watching this kind of show. How was I supposed to know? How was I supposed to know if you were interested in these performers or not? Elias looked thoughtful. I see. I think I've already told you I don't want to touch all abs and chest muscles. Similarly, not all people with good bodies are attractive to me. Elias patiently explained. In fact, since we're on this topic, I don't think I need to hide it from you anymore. The reason I chose to come and watch this show today was actually because of you. He admitted it frankly. Caleb's brain had completely stopped working. Because of me? Elias sighed softly. You haven't checked the weather forecast recently, have you? Caleb was confused. He watched as Elias took out his phone, opened the weather app he often used, and held the screen up to Caleb. It's 11:30 now. The current icon is a gray cloud, indicating an overcast sky. But then Caleb noticed that in half an hour, around 12 o'clock, there were 2 small blue droplets below the cloud. Caleb realized what was happening and suddenly looked up. Is it going to? A light rain is expected for half an hour to an hour, Elias said. Even though today is a Monday, it's a bank holiday. And the rain is predicted to start after midnight, so it's not within our agreed-upon assistance time. I know that from any perspective, I have no right to ask you for help today, because this is your personal time, Elias said. But I usually have trouble sleeping during these late-night rains. Even if I fall asleep at first, I'm likely to wake up with a fever. I knew that with your personality, you would definitely agree to come with them to watch this show. So I thought I'd try my luck. He said, there are 15 minutes left. The probability of this rain is 70%. If it doesn't end up raining, I'll just take a cab home and won't bother you anymore. But if this rain does come, he paused. On a late summer night, on a bench on a West End street, the lights of the theater entrance were brilliant and warm. The bustling street was filled with traffic. The sweet smell of churros and chocolate sauce hung in the air. Elias's eyes were like a calm, dark lake. His gaze first fell on Caleb's stomach, then slowly moved up, lingering on his chest for a few seconds. After a moment, he looked up and met Caleb's eyes directly. I was wondering if you'd be willing to lend me some of your personal time? He asked softly. So, you went through all this trouble to come to the show just to have me get you through this rain that's not within our agreed time? Elias replied, yes. Caleb was skeptical. It wasn't really to see the abs? Elias countered, if I had come for the physique, why would I choose to come with you all today instead of coming alone to appreciate it? Caleb thought about it and realized it made sense. Elias continued, this is your personal time and a holiday. I thought it would be a bit intrusive to ask you directly via text if you were free late at night. But if we happen to run into rain after watching the show, it would be a more natural turn of events. He added, the chances of you refusing me would also be smaller. Caleb was speechless. He stared at Elias's face, suddenly realizing a very important problem. Wait a minute. If it really does start to rain later, Caleb said hesitantly, Senior, have you thought about where we would go at this time and in this place to take shelter from the rain? And where would I help you? Elias suddenly fell silent. Caleb pressed, You didn't. Elias pondered for a moment. I was focused on how to persuade you to help me before it rained today. I didn't expect it to go so smoothly. I haven't planned for the step after you agreed. 10 minutes later, Elias arrived at Caleb's front door. Caleb's small apartment was very close to the theater. He had actually walked over that evening, but he had taken a little too long to pick out his clothes, which was why he was almost late. Unlike Elias's luxurious, spacious apartment, Caleb's place was a typical Boston studio. A small kitchen, a bed, a desk, a small sofa, and a separate bathroom. It was small but had everything he needed. The apartment was filled with a sense of life. A Celtics poster on the wall, a record player on the small coffee table, dumbbells in the corner, a half-eaten apple on the desk, and research papers scattered around. These were all traces of Caleb. On a shelf by the entrance was a framed photo, presumably a family picture. In the photo were Caleb's mother, a Chinese woman with strong features and a bright smile, and Caleb's father, a British man with the same brown eyes as Caleb who looked kind and honest. In the middle stood a smiling, basketball-toting teenage Caleb, clearly someone who had grown up surrounded by love. Elias stared at the photo for a moment. Caleb, having just changed his shoes, placed the half-eaten churros on the table. He turned around and saw Elias looking at the bookshelf. The medium-sized penguin he had won at the pier was placed in the center of the bookshelf. Strangely, it wasn't facing forward, but turned slightly to the side, its shy expression making it look like it was playing hard to get. Elias commented that placing a plush toy among the books on a bookshelf was an unusual style. He thought he might try it himself. Caleb felt inexplicably flustered. He explained awkwardly that he had just put it there randomly. He asked what time it was. 11:57, Elias replied. Caleb asked when the forecast said it would rain. Around 12 o'clock, Elias said. Caleb said, Oh, then we're not in a hurry. I can finish my churros first. Elias nodded and looked down at his own portion. Perhaps we can reheat this. Mine is a bit cold. Caleb agreed. The situation was a bit strange, as they were now trying to find things to do to kill time. As if they were waiting for the rain to come, as if they were hoping for it. 3 minutes later, the 2 portions of churros stopped spinning in the microwave. The microwave beeped. It was 12 o'clock. At the same time, Elias looked down at his phone screen. Maybe it's a localized shower that hasn't reached here yet, or maybe it won't rain at all today. Caleb opened his mouth slightly. He knew that from his perspective, it didn't matter if it rained or not. Logically, he should even be hoping that it wouldn't rain. But for some reason, as he looked out the window, he found himself thinking, since we're already here, why don't you just go ahead and rain? Caleb suggested they wait another 10 minutes. What if he left and it suddenly started raining on his way home? That would be a hassle. Elias looked at him and said, Okay. They began to eat their churros in silence. They had been eating these 2 portions of churros all this time and still hadn't finished. It was either because the portions were generous or because they were eating too slowly. 5 minutes later, Caleb had 1 churro left. Elias still had 3. Elias took 1 from his portion and put it in Caleb's paper bag. 10 minutes later, Elias shared some of his chocolate sauce with Caleb. They began to eat their last churro. 15 minutes later, they finally finished the 2 portions of churros in silence. By now, it was almost half an hour past the time the weather forecast had predicted for rain. Elias checked his phone again. Boston rain was like that. Sometimes it came down suddenly and without. Other times, the probability of precipitation was high, but not a single drop fell when it was supposed to. Elias felt he had troubled Caleb enough today. It was late, and Caleb needed to rest. He shouldn't stay any longer. Elias said it seemed like it wasn't going to rain. He thought he should go home. He thanked Caleb for waiting for the rain with him. Caleb still had the last bite of churro in his mouth. He looked up, bewildered. His throat was tight. Elias stood up. Do you have a place where I can wash my hands? My hands are a bit sticky. I need to wash them before I can leave. Caleb's throat bobbed. He managed to swallow the food in his mouth. There's a sink in the kitchen. Elias said, okay. The kitchen was next to the entrance. The light in the entrance was off, so it was a bit dim. Elias reached out and turned on the faucet. He had barely washed his hands for 2 seconds when he heard a soft click. His vision was plunged into darkness. In an instant, all the lights went out. Darkness and silence enveloped the room. Only the sound of the running water from the faucet was jarringly loud. Elias froze. He turned to look at the darkness in the room and said he hadn't touched anything but the faucet. Caleb was also stunned. Probably has nothing to do with you. It might be a tripped breaker or a power outage. Elias fumbled in the darkness and finally managed to turn off the faucet. He asked if Caleb had ever experienced something like this before. Yes, it's an old building. The location is good, the price is good, but the plumbing and electricity are always a bit faulty. It usually comes back on its own after a while. He heard Caleb sigh. Senior, don't move. There's a small step near the kitchen, it's easy to trip. I'll find my phone and use it as a light. 5 minutes later, Caleb muttered, why is the world so dark? In Caleb's memory, he had just tossed his phone on the table when he came in. But in the dark, Caleb fumbled around on the table for a long time. He touched napkins, earphone cords, and other miscellaneous things. He even touched the half-eaten apple. But he couldn't find his phone. As he gritted his teeth and continued his search, Caleb suddenly heard a loud rumble from outside. At first, he didn't react. It wasn't until the second clap of thunder, accompanied by the rustling sound of leaves being whipped by a strong wind, that Caleb suddenly realized what was happening. It was thundering. The room was eerily quiet for a moment. Caleb suddenly called out, Senior. After a moment, he heard Elias's soft hum in response. A bad feeling suddenly enveloped Caleb's heart. The next second, he noticed that mixed in with the sound of the wind outside was another sound. It was the pitter-patter of rain. The rain, which had been delayed for a full half-hour, had arrived at this very moment. Caleb's heart leaped into his throat. His first reaction was to call Elias's name again. Elias, are you? Elias's voice came over, very soft. Can you come find me first? Caleb immediately agreed. The phone was probably a lost cause for now. He could only feel his way along the wall in the dark. They couldn't see each other and could only judge each other's position by sound. Fortunately, Caleb knew the layout of his apartment well. He took a few tentative steps and vaguely saw a blurry black shadow in front of him. He tentatively reached out and touched a patch of warm skin. It was Elias's wrist. The moment he touched Elias in the dark, Caleb immediately grabbed his hand tightly. Having found each other, they both let out a sigh of relief almost simultaneously. However, Caleb's heart, which had just settled, leaped up again. He felt the temperature of the skin he was touching. It was slightly hot. Elias was probably already running a low-grade fever. Caleb asked how he was feeling. He couldn't see Elias's face, but he could hear his slightly rapid breathing. It finally started raining. Caleb's heart clenched. Elias's voice was trembling slightly at the end. "It's okay," Caleb said instinctively. "I'm here." After the words were out, Caleb himself was stunned. He quickly and clumsily added, "What do you need me to do? Like, help you sit down first, or—" Elias didn't notice the strange tone in Caleb's voice. "I can't see and I feel a bit hot." He asked softly, "Can you let me hold your arm for a minute?" Caleb's throat moved silently. He stammered out an agreement. "Go ahead." Before he could finish, he felt Elias wrap his arms around his upper arm. The next second, Caleb felt Elias rest his face on his shoulder. The rain outside beat rhythmically against the glass window. The window was open a crack, and the fresh smell of rain mixed with earth drifted into the room, along with the cool night breeze. But the person in his arms was burning hot. The sound of rain, the sound of wind, the sound of breathing, and the sound of Caleb's own heart. All his senses, except for sight, became exceptionally clear. After a while, Caleb heard Elias mumble, "I don't think it's a light rain. It might be a medium rain. Or maybe even more than a medium rain," Elias whispered. Caleb's breathing hitched, because the next moment, he felt Elias's fingers silently hook onto the collar of his shirt. Elias was probably unconsciously looking for something to hold onto to steady himself. But because Caleb's shirt today had a deep V-neck, Elias's hot fingertips brushed against the skin on Caleb's chest. This simple action suddenly took on an ambiguous meaning. "Do you understand what I mean?" he heard Elias ask softly. Caleb knew it would come to this. After the past few intimate encounters, regardless of whether it was a medium rain or a light rain now, Elias would no longer be satisfied with just holding his arm. Caleb couldn't find his phone now, so he couldn't know the real weather conditions. But he found that he didn't really want to know anymore. His voice was hoarse as he said, "The weather forecast isn't always accurate. After all, the rain was delayed this time, right?" He heard Elias hum in agreement, his voice soft. "So, can we just call it a medium rain this time? Can we?" It was a short question with no embellishment. But Caleb knew what those few words meant. In the context of a rainy day, it was a multi-layered question defined by Elias himself. Anticipating what would happen next, Caleb's heart began to race uncontrollably. But having had the experience in the auditorium restroom last time, he felt he was fully prepared this time. Whether it was touching his chest or his stomach, no matter how impactful the physical contact was, he would absolutely not be shocked by Elias's bold actions again. So Caleb stood up a little straighter, puffed out his chest, and took a deep breath. "Okay, go ahead." But the person in his arms was unusually quiet. Caleb couldn't see his condition. Seeing that Elias hadn't moved or spoken for a long time, he worried that he was delirious from the fever. A wave of concern washed over him. "Senior, are you still awake?" The thunder rumbled outside, and the rain seemed to get heavier. He could still clearly hear Elias's breathing, but Elias never placed his hand on his stomach or pressed his face to his chest as Caleb had expected. The next moment, Caleb felt Elias raise his hand and hook it around his neck. Caleb's eyes widened. This action wasn't particularly bold, but it was very intimate, more like something lovers would do during a tender moment. Elias was probably weak. Caleb could feel his hot breath on his skin, and he knew Elias must be feeling very uncomfortable right now. He couldn't see Elias's face, but he imagined that Elias's beautiful, calm eyes were probably slightly red and misty. Maybe he was looking directly at his face, or maybe he was looking brazenly at his chest. Caleb had no way of knowing, but thinking about it, he was actually a little grateful for the power outage. After a long moment, Caleb heard Elias speak weakly by his ear. "Your shirt is very suitable." Elias had already praised his outfit outside the theater earlier. Caleb didn't understand why he was repeating it now. Caleb thought he was referring to the style being suitable and, feeling a bit embarrassed, mumbled a reply. "I know, Senior. You already told me that." But Elias didn't respond. He was quiet in the darkness for a while. Caleb began to feel uneasy. He hesitated. "What about that time, when you were defrosting the freezer?" Elias's soft voice cut him off. "I remember you said you were a very open person, right?" The non sequitur confused Caleb. But he had indeed said that he was an open person. At the time, Elias had been pressing him, and Caleb was flustered and just wanted to brush him off with some nonsense. So now Caleb could only bite the bullet and answer, "Yes." "What's wrong?" Elias still didn't answer him directly. He seemed to be thinking and yin-nang ing something in the darkness. Caleb could only hear his rapid breathing. After a moment, he heard Elias speak slowly. "And during the show just now, you used up the interaction time that was originally between me and the performer." By this point, Caleb finally sensed that something was wrong. After spending this much time together, Caleb felt he knew Elias's personality very well. Elias had a very high IQ, but his social perception was slow and his emotions were relatively dans-moi except for plush toys. He didn't care much about others' feelings and was always direct, even if the truth was hard to hear. But at this moment, Elias was uncharacteristically beating around the bush, speaking in illogical non sequiturs. This rare roundabout tactic was contrary to his nature, which meant Elias must be planning something very out of line. Caleb became alert. "What are you? Since you used my interaction opportunity during the show, and you are also a very open person. And your shirt is so appropriate." The next moment, he heard Elias whisper in his ear, his voice almost inaudible. "So, would you mind if I put my hands under your shirt this time to touch what's inside?" Caleb had already anticipated that Elias was leading up to something big after all that preamble. He was mentally prepared. But when he heard Elias say the words "touch what's inside," Caleb admitted that his mental fortitude might still be a little lacking. Touch what's inside. To make sure he hadn't misunderstood, Caleb's voice was almost trembling. You want to put your hand inside and touch my..." "Yes," Elias said, "chest muscles, without any clothes in the way." Caleb's breathing hitched. "I know this is a bit of an excessive request," he heard Elias say, "but the shirt you're wearing today makes your chest look really nice to touch. And it looks very convenient to touch," he added. Caleb felt like he was about to forget how to write the word chest. Despite his breathing being slightly rapid due to his fever, Elias's tone was still calm and natural. "Of course, this is not within our agreed-upon mutual help scope. So if you can't accept it, you can refuse me. I will understand." Caleb was speechless. In the darkness, Elias couldn't see his expression. He was silent for a moment, then hesitated. "Is this request too much? Too much?" It was more than too much. It was completely lacking in moral boundaries and a sense of personal space, bold and shameless. But it was also exactly the kind of request Elias would make. And Caleb couldn't say anything, because he had personally created the very open person persona for himself. Caleb could only grit his teeth and force out the words, "It's not particularly excessive. It's just that I'm a little..." He couldn't go on. Sensing the reluctance in Caleb's tone, Elias let out a sigh of regret. "It's okay. I won't force you. Everyone has their own boundaries. I understand." The rain was getting heavier. Elias felt a bit dizzy. The low-grade fever made his body feel weak. He couldn't stand steadily for a moment and slowly leaned his lower back against the sink behind him. "It's okay. Could you please take me back to my seat first?" Elias adjusted his breathing and asked softly. "It's dark in the room. I can't see very well. The rain is expected to last for a while. I'm a little weak." After a moment, Elias heard Caleb's dry agreement. He felt his hand being taken by Caleb, and then he was guided forward step by step and finally seated. But the place he sat down on wasn't the expected chair, but a soft mattress. It was Caleb's bed. Elias was slightly taken aback. Caleb suddenly cut him off. "I have a question. Elias," you said, "do you really want to touch it that much?" He heard Caleb speak, as if he had given up all resistance. "I mean, it's just touching and holding. The effect should be about the same with a layer of clothing, right?" Elias said, "Honestly, it's very different." He repeated, "It's okay. I don't want to force you." Caleb hummed, struggling to hold onto his last bit of composure, his mind a mess. I can let you hold me like last time in the restroom." Suddenly remembering something, Elias let out a soft ah and murmured, "But thinking about it, that performer we met today was quite generous." The air suddenly went still. Caleb asked what he had said. "It's the first time in my life someone has proactively offered to let me touch them with their shirt off," Elias said, as if he were deep in thought and savoring the memory. "Now that I think about it, I should have tried it back then." Caleb asked in disbelief, "But didn't you say his muscles looked hard to touch? Didn't you say you didn't like that kind of hard texture?" "But those are two separate things," Elias said. "I don't like that texture of muscle, but..." He suddenly realized, "I have indeed never touched muscles that were not covered by fabric. I'm still a bit curious," he said. "Caleb, Elias continued, "But it's okay. I hear their show is a permanent fixture in London, so there will always be more opportunities in the future. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's not talk about this." The raindrops beat against the window pane randomly, making a dull, thudding sound. Elias yawned tiredly. "I think we can continue." Elias didn't finish his sentence. He felt two large hands suddenly grip his shoulders. He opened his eyes in surprise. At the same time, a huge force came at him. His body was already weak, and he was pushed directly onto the bed. Then he felt the mattress beside him dip, and a slight weight on his thigh. Caleb had straddled him. "Elias," Caleb hissed, "don't talk." He heard Caleb take a deep breath. Then, in the darkness, there was the sound of rustling fabric. Elias felt something soft fall beside his hand. He suddenly realized what was happening, his breath catching in his throat. Caleb had anticipated his reaction and immediately spoke. "Senior, you don't talk." Even though the room was completely dark, when his upper body was completely exposed to the air, Caleb's dry voice still trembled slightly. "You should know that every time you speak, I get nervous. And when I get nervous, I become less nice to touch. So for your own experience later, you'd better not provoke me by talking, and don't move," he added through gritted teeth. This threat was surprisingly effective. Elias didn't move or speak. The room was quiet and dark, with only the sound of the rain outside. Elias was lying on the bed, still processing what had happened, when he felt his hand being taken by Caleb. The young man straddling him seemed to hesitate for a moment, but finally steeled himself and brought Elias's hand to his own chest, pressing it down firmly. "You wanted to touch, right?" The young man's tone sounded self-deprecating. It was as if he were talking to Elias, but more like he was talking to himself. "It's not like I can't afford to let you." Elias's entire hand sank into a warm, soft expanse. It was the most wonderful, blissful experience in the world. The muscle was firm, soft, and resilient. His fingertips sank into the raised muscle. He was touching the young man's healthy, firm body. It was Caleb's chest muscle, bare, uncovered by any clothing, real, tangible flesh. Elias's breathing quickened instantly. The air fell silent. Caleb's breathing also became heavier. He held it in for a while, but finally couldn't help but ask, "Well, are you satisfied now?" Elias didn't speak. Caleb asked why he wasn't talking. After a while, he heard Elias's voice, slightly hoarse. "You told me not to talk." Caleb spoke with difficulty. "You can talk now. Can I move my hand?" Elias's voice still sounded calm. "Right now, I can only feel one spot. I can't give an accurate answer." Caleb took a silent, deep breath. "Whatever you want." Almost the instant Caleb spoke, Elias spread both his hands over Caleb's chest and began to move them wantonly. He began to explore from different angles. Caleb's entire body began to tremble uncontrollably. Every inch of skin Elias's fingers brushed over felt like it was catching fire. Elias was running a fever. His palms were hot. As he caressed the well-defined, firm, and solid body, he finally chose to stop at his favorite spot, the chest muscles. At first, he just used his palms to tentatively explore the contours, to get a good feel for the shape of the muscles. The next moment, he closed his fingers and kneaded wantonly. In the darkness, Caleb's eyes flew open. The sound he made was a broken whisper deep in his throat. "You." At the same time, he heard Elias murmur, "I love it." Caleb's body tensed. "It's the perfect feel I imagined." Elias's voice was as soft as a whisper. "Without the fabric in the way, it feels much, much softer. It's very warm, and it fits perfectly in my palm." As he spoke, his hands didn't stop, slowly caressing, wantonly kneading. Caleb heard Elias sigh, as if in contentment. So soft. In the darkness, Caleb couldn't see Elias's expression. But from that sigh, which was so soft it almost dissipated into the air, he could tell how satisfied he was. Caleb's sense of shame was at its peak, but strangely, when he heard the highest form of praise, perfect, he also felt a strange sense of accomplishment. His throat was already dry and parched, but Caleb was still trying to be tough. "It's just muscle. I don't understand what's so great about touching it." Elias said, "No. There's a big difference between muscle and muscle. Your muscle is like resilient jello. It bounces back, and it creates a counterforce against my palm." He gave a specific description. "It's very stress-relieving and warm. Can I touch your abs too?" he asked immediately. "I think it will be a different texture." He was asking, but without waiting for Caleb's answer, his hand landed on Caleb's lower abdomen. Caleb's abdominal muscles, which already looked firm and beautiful on a normal day, were actually more defined without clothes. The visual experience would have been even better, but the room was dark, so Elias couldn't see. But he could feel. Elias's fingers boldly traced the curve of each muscle on Caleb's abdomen. Caleb could only suppress the gasp in his throat. After a while, he couldn't take it anymore and asked, Have you touched enough?" He felt Elias's fingertips pause on his abdomen. Elias asked if he was going to put his clothes back on. Before Caleb could say yes, he felt Elias gently tap his lower abdomen with his fingertips, as if reluctant or as if teasing. "Can you wait a little longer?" Elias's voice was weak. "Would you mind if I just held you for a bit? Just for 5 minutes, okay?" Perhaps knowing that his request was a bit much, Elias said, "You can count to 300 in your head. When you get to the end, you can just push me away." His voice sounded sincere and desperate. Caleb's mind was a mess. He thought to himself that he had already gone this far. He had been touched all over. He gritted his teeth and decided to just go all in. "Fine. Hurry up. Can you lie down?" Elias said. "Lie down next to me. It'll be easier for me to hold you." Caleb hesitated for a moment, then lay down. He was actually very familiar with this position. The night he was mistaken for a giant penguin by a drunk Elias, he had been tormented like this all night. "Thank you," Elias's voice was extremely soft. "You can start counting now." From the first second to the 60th, they lay face to face in the darkness. Elias gently caressed the muscles on Caleb's chest. He lowered his head slightly and finally pressed his face against Caleb's chest. "What the hell are we doing right now?" Caleb screamed internally, on the verge of a breakdown. The skin on his chest was pressed tightly against Elias's cheek. Elias's breath was hot and moist, as if it were going to burn through Caleb's skin and all the way to his heart. From the 61st second to the 120th, Elias began to nuzzle his cheek and the tip of his nose against the skin on Caleb's chest. He didn't know how much this was bothering Caleb. He just wanted to experience every curve and every inch of softness of Caleb's chest muscles clearly. As his movements became larger, Elias's lips would even occasionally brush against the skin on Caleb's chest. The temperature of his lips was even hotter than his body temperature. Caleb tried to regulate his extremely rapid breathing, forcing himself to empty his mind. From the 121st second to the 180th, Elias finally entered a relatively still state. He found the softest, most comfortable, and most suitable spot on Caleb's chest to nuzzle against. Outside, the wind and rain beat against the window. Caleb felt that Elias's cheek was slightly damp. Maybe it was sweat from his low-grade fever, or maybe it was just Caleb's imagination. He couldn't tell. No one spoke. Only the sound of their breathing and the rain mingled, still intimate and clinging. From the 181st second to the 240th, his symptoms were alleviated. Elias's breathing gradually became steady. His consciousness was hazy. He curled up against Caleb, dependent and content, as if he had already fallen asleep. Of course, his hands were not idle the whole time, resting on Caleb's abdomen, pressed closely together. Caleb stared blankly at the dark ceiling, his heart racing. The last 60 seconds. Caleb felt the person in his arms move slightly. How many seconds left? About half a minute. Elias hummed vaguely. "Thank you," he heard Elias say. "Heavy rain and night rain used to be the two types of rainy weather I hated the most. But now I don't seem to be as afraid of them anymore. I know that this kind of physical contact is outside your comfort zone and also outside our agreement. You've broken a lot of rules for me," Elias said. "So no matter what, thank you." The young man in front of him was silent, but Elias knew he had heard, because the moment he finished speaking, he felt the muscle his cheek was resting on suddenly tense. Elias began to feel reluctant to let go. This was undoubtedly the most satisfying and comfortable of all the rainy days. But he also knew that the agreed-upon 300 seconds were almost up. Caleb would soon pull away from him, but he also knew that he couldn't be too greedy. If he left Caleb with the impression that he was too demanding, he might lose more wonderful experiences on future rainy days. Elias finally lifted his head and proactively put some distance between them. He opened his mouth. "Okay, I'm good. You can put your clothes on." He heard the young man's voice, slightly hoarse. "You're welcome." The next second, Elias's eyes widened. He felt a large, warm hand cup the back of his neck. A force pressed him forward. His face was unprepared and plunged back into that warm, soft paradise. Caleb had just pushed his head back down onto his chest. Caleb was also aware.